When all seems lost, remember, God has a greater plan for you. Have you ever felt this? That moment when your prayers seem to echo in the void, when your tears fall without anyone seeming to notice, not even God. It's like being in a dark room, banging on the walls, searching for a way out that simply won't appear. And deep in your chest, that painful question repeats itself. God, where are you? You know, there's something about silence that we don't immediately understand. We grow up hearing that God answers, that He acts, that He intervenes. And when He doesn't do anything, at least not in the way we expected, faith begins to tremble. It's as if the ground disappears from under our feet. You pray, fast, cry out, and nothing. The silence continues. And the longer you wait, the heavier it becomes. But here's the truth few tell you. God's silence isn't abandonment. It's not punishment. It's not disinterest. It's preparation. Think about it. Before any great miracle recorded in the Bible, there was always a waiting period, a period of apparent divine inactivity. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before God called him from the burning bush. David was anointed king, but spent years fleeing from Saul before assuming the throne. Jesus remained silent for 30 years before beginning his ministry. What was God doing during this time? He was building something unseen by the naked eye, and it's no different for you. Right now, while you feel invisible, forgotten, lost in the darkness, God is working in silence. He's aligning circumstances, preparing hearts, moving pieces you never even imagined existed, because His plan is always greater than our present pain. Always. And when God works in silence, it's not because He's abandoned you. It's because He's building something so big, so profound, so transformative that it needs to be done in the shadows first. So take a deep breath. This silence that suffocates you today, it's the birthing room of your miracle, and dawn is closer than you think. Pain has a strange way of distorting everything around us. It makes hope seem naive, faith seem weak. When you're at your lowest, you can't see the sky. You can only feel the weight of the earth on your shoulders. And that's when the question changes. It's no longer God, where are you? But God, why do you allow this? Let me tell you a story you might know, but you need to hear it again. There's a man in the Bible named Joseph. He was his father's favorite, had incredible dreams given to him by God, a bright future ahead of him. But do you know what happened? His own brothers, driven by envy, threw him into a well and then sold him into slavery. Imagine the scene. Joseph, at the bottom of that dark hole, screaming for help, hearing his brothers' voices fading away. He must have thought, God, was this the plan? Is this why you gave me these dreams? And Joseph's story only gets worse before it gets better. He was taken to Egypt, far from home, far from everything he knew. He worked as a slave in the house of a man named Potiphar. When things finally began to improve, Potiphar's wife lied about him, and Joseph ended up in prison. Innocent, unjustly treated, forgotten. Years passed. He interpreted dreams for other prisoners, helped people who promised to remember him, but was abandoned again. Joseph spent years in that prison, waiting, trusting, believing that God had not forgotten him. But the days turned into months and the months into years. What Joseph didn't know was that every betrayal, every injustice, every tear shed in that prison was shaping the man who would one day rule Egypt and save entire nations from famine. God wasn't absent. He was preparing him. Because the desert has a divine purpose, it is there that we learn to depend completely on God, not on circumstances. The pain you feel today, the one that seems meaningless, could be God's chisel carving something eternal in you. Trials and spiritual growth go hand in hand. And if Joseph could say anything to you today, it would be this: it was worth it. Every tear was worth it. So tell me, what if your pain also has a purpose that you can't yet see? There's a huge difference between absence and silence. Absence is when someone isn't there. Silence is when someone is present but chooses not to speak yet. And God, He's never absent, but sometimes He chooses silence. And that makes us despair, doesn't it? because we were created to live on immediate responses, instant likes and quick deliveries. But God operates in a different dimension. Think of the farmer. He plants the seed, covers it with soil, and walks away. Days pass, weeks, and nothing appears on the surface. If you look at the field at that moment, you'll think, it didn't work. The seed died. But underground, something extraordinary is happening. The roots are growing, deepening, strengthening. And when the plant finally breaks the surface, it emerges with a structure so solid it can withstand storms. This is exactly how God works. While you don't see anything happening on the surface of your life, He is building deep roots within you. He is strengthening your faith, shaping your character, preparing you to sustain the blessing that is coming. Because what God is building in you is too great to be rushed. Trust in God's plan, even when it doesn't make sense. Isaiah 55:8-9 says something powerful. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. God sees what you don't see. He knows what you don't know, and His silence is not a lack of response. It is the wisest answer He can give you right now. So stop interpreting silence as rejection. Start understanding God's timing as divine strategy. Because when He finally moves, you'll realize that every second of waiting was aligned with absolute perfection. What if I told you that the miracle you've been asking for is already on its way, just waiting for the right moment to arrive? We want everything yesterday, don't we? We live in an age where waiting 30 seconds for a video to load is unbearable. So when God asks us to wait months, years, decades, our soul cries out, "Why not now, God? Why don't you just fix this?" But here's the reality. God acts in His right time, not in His convenient time. Consider the case of Abraham. God promised him a son, descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. Abraham waited and waited and waited. 25 years passed between the promise and the birth of Isaac. 25 years. Abraham was 75 years old when God made the promise, and 100 when he finally held his son in his arms. Imagine the number of nights he looked up at the starry sky and thought, "God, have you forgotten?" But God hadn't forgotten. He was teaching Abraham about faith, about trust, about God's will always being perfect, even when it seems delayed. Every delay from God is actually a lesson, because if everything came easily and quickly, you would never develop patience, spiritual maturity, or inner strength. Waiting is not punishment. It is training. God is transforming you into a person capable of carrying the weight of the blessing He has prepared. Oh, and since we're all on this journey together, let me ask you something quick. If this message touches your heart, subscribe to the channel and like it. This helps me continue to share this word of faith and hope with more people who need to hear it. Share it with someone who also needs this message today. Deal? Great. Stay with me. Psalm 27:14 reminds us, "Wait for the Lord, be of good courage, and let your heart be strong. Wait for the Lord." See, the Bible doesn't say wait if you can. It says, wait and strengthen your heart while you wait. Because waiting on God is not passive. It is active, full of faith, full of expectation. And when God's timing finally comes to pass in your life, you will understand why you had to wait so long. There's a verse you've probably heard 1,000 times, but perhaps never truly understood. Romans 8:28 says, "We know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to His purpose." All things. Not just the good things, not just the things that make sense. All things, including that betrayal that destroyed you, including that loss that shattered you, including that moment when you feel completely lost. Think of a tapestry being woven. If you look from behind, you'll see only tangled threads, confused knots, colors that don't seem to match. It looks like a complete mess. But when you turn the tapestry over and look at the front, you see a masterpiece, a perfect design, where every thread, even the ones that seemed wrong, had an essential function. This is how God weaves your life. He sees the front while you can only see the mess behind. That door that closed, God was protecting you from something that would destroy you in the future. That relationship that ended, God was preparing you for someone who truly values who you are. That job you lost, God was repositioning you for something greater. All things work together for good to those who love God, even when that cooperation seems painful at the moment. Joseph saw this at the end of his life. After everything, the pit, the slavery, the prison, the injustice, he became governor of Egypt. And when his brothers, the very ones who sold him, showed up fearing revenge, do you know what Joseph said? Genesis 50:20. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring about, as you now see, the saving of many lives. God took the worst moment of Joseph's life and turned it into salvation for entire nations. God is in control. Even when it seems like everything has fallen apart, He holds the pieces of your life together with a steady hand. And in due time, He will show you the reason for every pain, every tear, every detour along the way. Are you ready to see the miracle that God is sowing in the shadows of your life? Gold doesn't become gold without going through fire. Diamonds don't become diamonds without extreme pressure. What about you? You don't become who God intended you to be without your faith being tested. It's hard to hear, I know, but it's true. Trials and spiritual growth cannot be separated. One is the cause, the other is the effect. Think of David. Before he was king, he was a shepherd. God allowed him to face a lion and a bear in the field, alone. Why? Because when David came face to face with Goliath, a giant nearly 10 feet tall, who made entire armies tremble, he didn't tremble. He had already seen God work. He had already been shaped by the fire of small battles. And when he picked up that stone and slung it into his sling, it wasn't just the stone that flew, it was the faith of a man who had already been tested and proven. What God allows you to face today isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to prepare you for the Goliath that comes tomorrow, because spiritual strength in the face of challenges isn't optional, it's essential. And when you come out the other side of this test, you won't be the same person. You'll be stronger, wiser, more connected to God. James 1:2-4 challenges us. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of various kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And let perseverance have its perfect result, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. See, trials are not the end, they are the means. They are the path to maturity. God transforms the impossible when He finds a heart that continues to believe, even without understanding. And your heart, does it still believe? Because if you still believe, even if it's the size of a mustard seed, God will make the impossible happen in your life. He just needs you not to give up, so hold on tight. Fire is temporary, but the gold that comes from it, that's eternal. And suddenly, something changes. It's not something you see with your eyes, it's something you feel in your spirit, as if a fog that had covered everything finally begins to lift. And there, in that moment of clarity, you realize God never failed you. He never abandoned you. He was there all along, guiding every step, even in the shadows. Remember all those moments when you thought you were going to give up? Those days when you no longer had the strength to pray, to believe, to keep going? Guess who kept you standing? Who put that friend in your path just when you needed it most? Who made you wake up today with breath in your lungs and another day of chance? It was God. It was always God. It's like when you look back on your life and realize that nothing, absolutely nothing, was by chance. That job you were turned down for? 2 months later, that company went bankrupt. That relationship that ended? Today you see clearly how toxic it was. That forced move you hated. It brought you to the place where you finally found purpose. God was guiding you, even when you thought you were lost. Isaiah 41:10 echoes in your heart now. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. He strengthened, He helped, he sustained. You didn't get here by accident. You didn't survive this alone. It was God's hand, invisible but real, holding you all along. And now you understand, overcoming difficult times with faith isn't about feeling that God is near. It's about trusting that He is, even when you don't feel anything. It's about trusting God in difficulties, not because it makes sense, but because He is trustworthy. Always has been, always will be. So look back and see, how many times has God held you when you didn't even realize it? He's never failed you, and He won't start now. Do you know what the most beautiful part of all this is? It's that nothing was wasted, no tear fell in vain, no sleepless night was forgotten. Every pain, every wound, every brokenness, it all becomes part of your story of redemption. And now you understand. What seemed like the end was just the beginning of a new phase, a stronger, wiser phase, closer to God. You are no longer who you were before. The person who entered the desert is not the same person who is emerging from it. You now carry something that no one can take from you, experience with God. You know firsthand that God has a greater plan. You have witnessed firsthand that He never fails. And this makes you dangerous for hell, because now you know who your God is. Jeremiah 29:11 takes on a whole new meaning now. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. All this time God had a purpose. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God has a purpose for every second of your life, even the ones that seemed lost. And now you begin again, but not from scratch. You begin again with wisdom, with tested faith, with a heart that knows the God who transforms deserts into gardens. You begin again knowing that no matter what lies ahead, God has already gone ahead to prepare the way. God's word for times of affliction is not just comfort, it is direction, it is promise, it is certainty. So get up, shake off the dust, look ahead with eyes shining with hope, because your new beginning isn't just about surviving, it's about living with divine purpose. And the best part, there's still more. There's still something God has saved, especially to reveal to you at the end of this journey. Stay with me. There's a peace the world doesn't know. It's not the absence of problems, it's the presence of God in the midst of them. It's that inexplicable calm that fills your chest when you finally surrender everything into His hands. When you stop trying to control every detail and simply say, God, Thy will be done. John 14:27 captures this perfectly. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives do I give to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. The peace of Christ does not depend on circumstances. It exists despite them. You can have a bank account in the red and have peace. You can have a difficult diagnosis and have peace. You can be in the midst of a storm and have peace. How? Because you know who is in control. Find peace through faith, not through answers, not through everything being resolved, but through knowing that God is in control, and that's enough. When you trust in God's plan, fear loses its grip. Anxiety can't take hold. Doubt has nowhere to rest, because unshakable faith in God is the anchor that holds you when everything around you shakes. Think of Paul and Silas in prison. They were beaten, thrown in the dungeon, their feet chained in stocks. It was midnight, dark, painful, unjust. And do you know what they did? They sang, they worshipped God, not because the situation was good, but because they knew God was good, regardless of the situation. And God honored that faith. An earthquake opened the prison doors, and they emerged not only free, but with the jailer and his entire family converted. The peace that comes from surrender isn't passivity, it's active trust. It's continuing to praise when it doesn't make sense. It's continuing to believe when everyone says it's over. It's resting in God's lap while He resolves what you can't. And when you reach this place of total surrender, of true peace, something supernatural happens. You are finally ready to receive what God has prepared for you from the beginning. We've reached the end of this journey, but not the end of your story, because your story with God is just beginning. And now I want to reveal something I promised at the beginning, the great secret behind everything you've been through. Nothing, absolutely nothing was in vain. Every tear you shed, God collected it in his wineskins, as Psalm 56:8 says. Every prayer that seemed unheard, it was heard and answered just in its own time, not yours. Every detour, every closed door, every deafening silence, it was all part of God's greater plan, a plan so perfect, so detailed, so loving, it could only come from him. Ephesians 3:20 reminds us of something glorious. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. More than you asked, more than you imagined, more than you thought possible. This is the God you serve. This is the God who has never abandoned you. This is the God who has a greater plan for your life. And do you know what I've learned along this journey? That God wastes nothing. He transforms tragedy into testimony. He transforms pain into purpose. He transforms defeat into victory, because everything works together for good for those who love God. It always has. It always will. God's will may seem mysterious, but it is always perfect, always good, always full of love. So I ask you now, will you still doubt? After all God has done, after all the times he has held you, after all the proof of his love, will you still question whether he has a plan for you? Because he does. Of course he does. And that plan is beautiful. It is restorative. It is redemptive. God has a plan for your life, and that plan is unfolding right now at this very moment. Proverbs 3:5-6 sums it up masterfully. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Trust, not because you understand everything, but because he is trustworthy. And when you trust completely, he makes the path straight. He does the impossible. He transforms your story into a message of faith and hope for others. So today, I want to leave you with a challenge. Stop for a moment and reflect. Where has God taken you? What has he taught you in this process? And how can you use this story, this pain transformed into victory, to help someone going through what you've been through? Leave a comment below. I trust in God's plan. Write it as a statement of faith. And if this message touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell so you don't miss future videos, and leave a like. This will help this message of faith and hope reach more people who are lost in the darkness, searching for a little light. Always remember, when all seems lost, God is working in the unseen. God acts in the right time. God transforms the impossible. And God has a greater plan, always has, always will. A plan that involves not only restoring you, but using you to restore others. A plan that transforms your pain into purpose and your trial into powerful testimony. May the peace of Christ, which surpasses all understanding, guard your heart and mind. May hope sustain you amidst pain. And may you never ever forget, God never fails. He is with you. He always has been, and he always will be. Philippians 4:13, be your strength today. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Everything. Not just a few things, everything, because the God of the impossible lives in you. Go in peace, go in faith, and go knowing that God's best for your life is yet to come. Amen.